Just last week, I told you guys about a strange weather pattern that was taking shape that ultimately led to feet of snow in Michigan and tornadoes in Missouri. Well, things are about to get even weirder as another huge shift is occurring, leading to what storm chasers refer to as the death ridge. It sounds scarier than what it is. You're not going to die from this, but this is going to cause significant and potentially dangerous impacts, which will be felt across the country. Starting on Tuesday, where we have a chance of severe weather in the central U.S., all thanks to what's left of our omega block pattern that we talked about in the last video. You see, we still have these two areas of colder air aloft on the sides of the country, but the big ridge in the middle of the country got much bigger than what we expected. This oversized dome of high pressure is going to alter the omega block and allow for subtle troughs to enter the plains from the west like this one. And as a result, we're going to see a bunch of severe weather because of it. During the day on Tuesday, we're going to see scattered showers and storms all across the central and eastern U.S., even over here in the Carolinas, where a few of these could get pretty strong. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has put out a slight risk of severe weather for parts of North Carolina on Tuesday. Watch out for some damaging winds during the heating of the day and maybe even some hail. And later in the evening, we could actually see some tornadoes out here in the plains as conditions get a little bit more favorable around sunset. But the main driving force behind all of these storms is our little pocket of cold air that's trying to infiltrate our omega block. And not only do we have to watch these little pockets of cold air or these troughs, but we also have to watch the building high pressure ridge in the middle. This thing is going to become very evident as we go into Wednesday, where not only do we have a chance for some storms, but the huge ridge is going to lead to some much warmer than average temperatures across a lot of the northern and central US. It's going to be in the 80s up here in Minnesota, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from where we saw more than a foot of snow last week. How about mid to upper 80s down here in the southeast from Nashville through southeast Georgia? Even the northeast is starting to heat up with some of the big I-95 cities getting close to the mid 70s. But our continued stormy pattern persists over here in the central U.S. with more strong storms and heavy rain throughout the day. The most likely area for severe weather on Wednesday is going to be up here around northeast Colorado, where we could see some big hailers and maybe even a tornado or two. But you could really see a storm pretty much anywhere highlighted in any color on this map on Wednesday. The intensity of these storms, however, will be quite a bit more concerning as we go into Thursday. Our breakaway trough from the west is going to be gaining a lot of momentum as it moves from the Rockies into the plains. I've talked about this process before. As air travels over the Rocky Mountains, it gets squished and spreads out like a pancake, which in turn makes it spin slower. But as the air moves away from the mountains and into the plains, the air stretches back out towards the flat surface, becoming more cylindrical, and that makes it spin faster. Think of it like a figure skater bringing their arms in to spin faster. The same thing is going to be happening with this storm system. And that's one of the reasons why we're really concerned about severe weather with it. But not only that, this will also be what we call a dry line event, where very dry air pushes up against very moist air, and this one's going to be sharp. Some of y'all out here in West Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma are going to experience the tropics and the desert within hours. I mean, there is some bone dry air out here fueling this thing. So dry, in fact, that I'm getting thirsty. I'm a little parched. I need to get a little bit hydrated up in here. Which reminds me, we've got to shout out today's sponsor, Liquid IV, fueling life's adventures. Folks, everybody gets thirsty from time to time, but I have been known to be a little bit of an expert when it comes to thirst quenching techniques and hydration. Recently, I've discovered that you don't have to drown yourself all day anymore because we have Liquid IV. This stuff gets you hydrated faster than water alone, and it has 3 times the amount of electrolytes than most traditional sports drinks. You can get these little drink mixes for when you're on the go to help you feel great while also giving you something tasty to drink. This is way more convenient than lugging around a gallon jug of water all day, and it's more fun, and it just tastes better. I am a huge fan of Liquid IV, and the team here at the Weather House uses it every day. If you haven't tried this stuff out already, you are missing out. I'm not kidding. Why don't you go on down to the description and check out Liquid IV's sweepstakes. One of you guys is going to get lucky, and you're going to receive a 1-year supply of free hydration multiplier drink mix packets. That's right. It's as simple as clicking the link in the description and going and entering the sweepstakes, and you could be set with a whole year of hydration for free. Now that we're properly hydrated, let's get back into the video. As this transition is taking place on Thursday, the cool air will force the moist air up into the sky, creating several supercells and the chance for large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. And the tornado threat with this one's actually pretty impressive. Notice how we get just a little bit of an increase in the lower level jet winds as we get closer to sunset. This will add even more spin into the system, allowing for those supercells to start forming wall clouds and funnel clouds. It's really too far out to talk about specifics and tornado probabilities, but this is something that we have to watch very closely as we go forward. Even the Storm Prediction Center agrees with me here. I mean, they've already put out an uncommon day 4 severe weather outlook, highlighting the potential for big storms and of course those potential tornadoes. And that risk for storms may even carry into Friday as the system continues to move east. In traditional May fashion, really anyone from South Dakota to Texas could see some isolated strong thunderstorms, but there's going to be a little hot spot here in Nebraska that we will have to watch, thanks once again to that little pocket of cold air that just keeps trying to push its way into the ridge. But notice how the poor little thing starts to quickly diminish though as we get later into the day. This is good news, as it may mean we're going to see less of a severe weather event on Friday, and it will likely lead us into getting out of this constant severe weather pattern for the weekend. In fact, as we go deeper into the weekend, that high pressure ridge is going to start going nuts. Notice this huge quick expansion of the ridge and its heightened intensity as we go towards Sunday. This is the true beginning stage of our death ridge. Now, I know this sounds really extreme, and it kind of is, but this is not going to really be deadly to people. Storm chasers call this the death ridge because it's deathly saddening to people who love storm chasing. Storm chasers would much rather see storms out in the open fields and plains than in larger metropolitan areas. And what we're looking at here is basically a very high amplitude ridge blocking storms yet again from coming into the plains like we talked about in the last video. And that's a big bummer to storm chasers because there's going to be less storm chasing opportunities out there, and therefore we get the name the death ridge. But this doesn't mean that storms won't happen anywhere. One of the big reasons this is disheartening is because it could actually mean more big time storms farther east and in places where people are more susceptible to severe weather. In fact, we will likely see a bit of an uptick in severe weather along this boundary in the Midwest, and this kind of pattern is known to produce progressive derechos. And those could be very dangerous in this part of the world, which is all too familiar with them. Usually we don't see this kind of pattern until June or July, but with what I am seeing right now, a few late May derechos cannot be ruled out. On top of all this, a death ridge will usually lead to a heat wave, and this one is no different, with temperatures reaching up to 30 degrees above average out here in the western US. This will likely break some records as we go towards next week, especially up here in the Pacific Northwest, where we could be getting up into the 90s. And all this will of course play a huge role in the weather as we go into next week. The main thing I'm noticing though is the chance for some quieter weather out here in some of these places that have been battered by heavy rain recently. Hopefully we can have at least 1 week in May where we can all go enjoy the sun and not worry about daggone tornadoes. But of course it is May, and even if we do get a quiet week, the end of May almost always shows out in terms of severe weather. Now is the time to not be scared, but rather be prepared by making sure you have your tornado action plans in place, batteries in your NOAA weather radio, and of course making sure you hit that subscribe button right here on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and a huge shout out to all of our new members. I really appreciate you guys so much. We will see you in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh.